Joining us now to discuss the performance of the ministers in the last 1 year is politician and change advocate Daniel Akinlami. Dan, it's good to have you join us now.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Great. Now, we've been watching, Nigerians have been watching the government and performance since last year. And if you talk to Nigerians, they speak from different perspectives when it comes to their understanding and what their impact and what the feeling and what their experiences are. But I wonder, you have been watching the government, especially from the ministers and how the agenda of government is. What is your assessment? Let's start from there before we even delve into some of the specifics.
Well, I think the retreat is coming at the right time. And the main aim also is to evaluate the performance of the ministers. And if we have to look at what has gone down in the past 1 year for the federal cabinet, there are several sectors to really look at. But there are some sectors that actually come out very strong, especially the Ministry of Transportation. Right. So a lot of activities have also happened in that area in terms of the rail infrastructure and other things that are happening there. Also, there is also the Ministry of Works, burdened with a lot of infrastructural works too, as far as the road construction is concerned. So also the aviation too. So at this point, what is very key is that the COVID-19 has also robbed on these performance targets. Don't forget, the past 5-6 quarters, the economy started to, the GDP started to turn positive increase, up to about over 2% increase in the GDP. But from the first quarter of this year, the global economy that slowed down also affected Nigeria revenue. And we couldn't really see much in terms of performance in the last 6 months. But where we are today, one key area I believe the retreat should also focus on is the collaboration within the
interagency collaboration.
We've seen this part between Nigeria Diaspora Commission and the Ministry of Communication, and one or two other agencies too that have gone to the public. So that synergy needs to be promoted for them to really deliver on these 9 priority areas.
All right, so before you touched on something, you touched on the fact that COVID-19 has robbed us of some sort of improvement that this administration has made. And you also talked about global revenue, and I guess you're talking about the price of oil, crude oil. But we know that this administration talked about diversification through agriculture, and hence we have the Anchor Borrowers Program, the Presidency Fertilizer Initiative, and all of the agricultural initiatives that were put together by this administration. So when you look at all of that, do you think that they've done well in terms of diversifying the economy through agriculture?
Unfortunately, we've not been able to sustain the gains of the past 2 or 3 years in the agricultural sector. And also don't forget that part of this 9 priority interrelated area is achieving agricultural and food security. In the process of driving this, we shut the borders, okay? But from the first quarter of this year, we've lost ground. Now to the extent that we have to go and import maize. Okay, so we still have to refer back to the impact of the COVID-19. And if we're looking at some of these ministries and interagencies that have really pushed very well this year, the Agric Ministry is at the back. So we need to really look at what to really do. From this retreat in particular, the agric sector need some more vibrant drive. Okay.
Now, at the retreat, it was talked about the issue of a 2.3 trillion naira stimulus package that will be ingested as a way of ameliorating some of the difficulties and challenges that Nigerians are going through. How far do you think that is going to go? Also considering the fact that there is a dearth or shortage of adequate statistics and data.
Yes, I think the first area we should be concerned is the revenue. Okay. How the federal government is going to be able to get this 2.3 trillion naira to come on board. Okay. But if we are able to put that in place, for this program, then the supervisory policy between the CBN and the interrelated agencies in that ministry that will make sure that this program is successfully executed, that it can reflect in the economy. Okay. That's has always been the problem, the execution of the program, especially when these funds is injected, how effectively the stakeholders stick to the blueprint.
All right.
Now, the president has 9 priority areas away from the 3, he talks so much about, which is corruption, fighting corruption, tackling insurgency, and then improving the economy. But there are 9 priority areas then broken down into all of these areas. Now, when you look at these 9 priority areas, where do you think that the president or this administration has done well the most?
Well, I think it's quite difficult to pick any of the areas above others for now, looking at 1 year after. But it's also important we should acknowledge the progress made in the transport sector. There's the infrastructure that is coming on board, the rail infrastructure, and also the development in the aviation sector too. The new phase of infrastructure coming up in the international airports, and also some of the activities that are coming up within the economy. Now, part of this 9 interrelated priority is the first and the major one, which is stabilizing the economy, where the administration set out last year to lift about 100 million Nigerians above poverty. But today, with some of the global crises that we've had this year, it's very difficult to say the administration has done much in lifting Nigerians above poverty. In fact, standard of living now is declining, especially from the first quarter of this year, especially with all the attending crises that COVID-19 brought to the global space.
Yeah. But isn't that ironical? Because the point there is that considering the areas the president has said, which certainly people would, like you mentioned, in the area of transport, you see a lot of real lines crisscrossing the country and more projects going on, bridges have been built, roads construction and all of that. In all of this, we still have the poverty rate is increasing from the reports we hear. Unemployment rate is also increasing. The Human Development Capital Index, we're not faring well. Why is that?
Well, I think the retreat should be able to avoid the cabinet. Okay. The opportunity to look at the areas that have done well and also see what they can do in the other aspects that are not faring well, especially the economy, the agri sector. Also, don't forget that part of this 9 priority area is achieving agricultural and food security. We can't say there's food security now. And then we're also looking at having a sustainable, efficient energy within the power and petroleum sector. We cannot see the power yet. The petroleum sector too is not as sustainable what the policy that we have there right now, especially with all these attending issues to the fee increase. And also don't forget the fact that the revenue in that sector also declined due to this same global crisis. So the retreat should be able to afford them the opportunity to work more in those sectors. They've done well in the transport and the aviation. We can see the results.
But a lot of executive orders were signed in this regard. What are executive order number 1 that has to do with the business environment, ensuring that we have a better business environment. There was executive order number 2, promoting local procurement. We had executive number 5 talking about local content in contracts. So a lot of these were signed. So are we saying that even with all of this executive order, that we're still not making progress or they were not effective? What happened?
Unfortunately, those executive orders were fantastic ideas that would have propelled growth, but we haven't seen much. Look at the SME sector and the ease of doing business. At some point in the administration, towards the end of the first tenure, the ease of doing business really picked up, and Nigeria's rating also improved. We jumped about 36 places to go up, and we are even among the 10 performing country in reforms. But today, we've lost some ground. Well, not thanks to COVID-19 crisis as well, but the government need to do more, especially some of the program to be put out by CBN. We need to be aggressive in pushing some of these policies to the grassroots until we begin to see the effect on the street, until the SME begin to grow. Then they can feed the economy. But as it is now, there are too many tasks that are being imposed upon businesses. So many burden. Government also is also trying to shed some of the palliatives and the subsidy that the government has taken as responsibility because the resources have declined. So it hasn't been a smooth ride for all these policies, especially the ease of business, to translate to results.
Well, as it is right now, there is also the debate of the private sector coming into, because if the private sector comes in, they bring their own funds, they bring their own technical know-how, they bring their own partners and all of that. How much of that should be considered going forward? Because from everything you have said, it seems government is not translating things. So how should they partner with the private sector to take the driver's seat in this instance?
Well, I think in the next phase, in the next 1 year, perhaps now efforts should be focused on the 2021 budget. How the 2021 budget can create a support to some of these vacuum that we have now, especially in the area of the SME. And then government needs to come up in the areas where the private sector too can bring in contribution. Unfortunately, not every area, not every deal, not every policy have turned out where the partnership with private sector has done fantastically well. But the areas where the partnership is working, let's take advantage to strengthen those areas. Look at the power sector. The partnership hasn't really solved the problem today, okay? But you can see some other sectors where the partnership has been helping the economy. Look at telecom. So you can see some other sectors like that. So then we can also look at some of these new partnerships that the government is looking at. As much as government is trying to remove a hand from some of these SSCs so that they can focus on infrastructure, we must be thorough. The retreat should avoid the cabinet to focus on the areas that will deliver results now.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean, a lot to talk about on this, but we have the next 1 year to review, all over again.
Exactly.
Change advocate and politician Daniel Akinlami, thanks for talking to us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.